Welcome to Sales Pitch, Results Selling Framework podcast. I'm Keith Marchiano, Senior Executive Coach for Pax8 Academy. Results Selling Framework. You get your first time meeting with a prospect. It's your first date. Congratulations. When you go on a first date, do you sit there and just talk about yourself all the time? Or the person across the table just talk about themselves all the time? That sounds like a really, really bad first date. No, you want to ask questions about them. Get to know the other person, right? They ask questions of you, know you. But if you're on a first time appointment, you want to ask a bunch of questions. Get to know the person. Do they value IT? Do they appreciate IT? What problems do they have? Right? Not going in talking about us and our tool sets and how great our people are and all the products that we provide. No, that's talking about yourself the whole time. Ask questions. Understand about them, what they're looking for, what problems they're trying to solve. Result selling framework is all about what do you do when you get that first time appointment. It also will help a technical owner, technical person that doesn't have any sales training. If you know how to install a network, you can have a great conversation with somebody. This will be right in your wheelhouse to have good questions to be able to get more business, more opportunities. If you're a salesperson, you're going to be able to frame your questions and talk more about the problems you will help solve for your prospects. So today we're going to get into that introduction around results selling framework. Hope you enjoy it. All right, I'm excited to have Jeremy on the call today. Jeremy is the grand poobah of sales enablement here at Pax8 Academy. So you're in for a treat. Jeremy, why don't you give everybody a little background on yourself?
Sure. I've done a lot of things in my life, but the things that you're going to care about if you're listening to this podcast is the fact that I ran an MSP for 20 years. I was a little unique. I was a salesman owner. Then I sold the company, worked as an outside sales rep for 3 years covering the Latin American market, the Caribbean, and Florida, which is funny because I don't speak Spanish or Portuguese, right? And then for the last 5 years, I've worked with either C-Level or now Pax8 Academy, particularly around how to help MSPs improving their ability to sell.
And Jeremy's being a little humble here. Jeremy is like brain force around bringing sales to the partner community here at Pax8. And him and I have put a lot of time into results selling framework. We're super excited about this entire podcast here today. So you heard my intro, Jeremy, from a standpoint, and I know you and I have discussed this a number of times. Can you expand upon what I talked about from your viewpoint?
Absolutely. I've taken a ton of sales training in my career. More than it's probably good for me. And one of the things I realized a while back, Keith, when you and I started talking about coming up with a different kind of sales framework designed around the MSP community, which, as you know, is well known for its ability to sell. I mean, that is one of the things that MSPs are really known for, that there was a premise. All my sales training assumed that you like to sell, okay? And as you know, a lot of MSPs come from a technical background, right? They love fixing stuff. They kind of grew up, right? They were kind of an accidental entrepreneur and started doing a company. And selling was kind of like the last thing on their minds. So our results selling framework is specifically designed for people who are uncomfortable and don't like kind of calling themselves salespeople. All right. Now, it doesn't mean it won't help them if you have your own team, but this is where we're really coming from. If you come from a technical background, this system should speak to you.
And you hit a main point. There's a mindset of the technical led owner that's trying to drive new business to the business. It's, I hate selling, right? And I always try to coach around that to say, look, change your mindset. You're not selling. You're solving people's problems. Technical people love solving problems. So flip that mindset, flip that switch.
Absolutely, Keith. I absolutely agree with you. You are not selling to somebody, okay? My joke, and if you watch these podcasts at all, you'll get a lot of dad jokes, is they say, a good salesman can sell ice to Eskimos. That's incorrect. What they do is they sell refrigerators to the Eskimos because who wants to go outside in the cold?
That's right. That's a good one.
Okay? And so we want to do the same thing. Most MSPs provide high quality service. And the key is to be able to communicate that in a way that your prospect understands. Because listen, folks, if you're really good at what you do, why would you want somebody you're talking to go to somebody else that does not as good a quality job?
That's right. And I think, if you kind of line them up, there's definitely different flavors of IT service providers out there. People have different, we call it different growth stages and such. But, if everybody does a good job with service, who goes above and beyond. And as we go through a really result selling framework, if you're subject matter expert with a particular industry or solving certain problems, that does put you ahead of the game, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, that's one of the myths of our industry, right? Every MSP says, well, I don't have an industry. I can work on anybody's computer, right? And absolutely, you can work on anybody's computer, but you probably shouldn't, okay? So let me give you another example, all right? I do these in some of my, when I do my breakout sessions at some of my events, but what I basically say to people is, and I hope this never occurs to you, but, right, lawyers all do the same things. Accounting firms do the same thing, right? But I hope you never need a criminal lawyer. But if you do, I really hope you don't hire a contracts lawyer to help you.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Good analogy.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So the idea is, as we know as MSPs who've been around a bit, every vertical has some specialty software or some need that is specific to them. Right? And so if I'm hiring somebody to take care of my computers, do I want a generalist who kind of knows a little bit about everything? Or do I want somebody who specifically knows my industry? Okay? And if you follow our result selling framework, we're going to give you tools that in the first 30 seconds of a conversation with somebody, you're going to be able to prove to them that you understand their industry.
Or you're asking the right questions that hint at that expertise too, right? If you just talk general stuff like how many computers, things like that, you sound like everybody else. But
Correct.
If you focus on law firms and you start name dropping some of the softwares that law firms care about that drive their business, now you're talking a different language.
Right. Or you get even specific, right? Hey, now this happens to come from me because I come from a long line of lawyers. Now, to be true, I'm the only smart one in the bunch, but we won't. That's why I'm not invited to Thanksgiving dinner anymore, but that's another story. Okay? But here's the deal. If you're dealing with a criminal lawyer, right, or somebody who actually, because not all lawyers go to court a lot, but if you do, and you say, look, we work with a lot of lawyers, and we understand that if your technology doesn't work and you're before the court, the judge is not going to accept technology. The dog ate my homework. Okay? So we're experts at making sure that you are never sitting in front of a judge trying to explain why you can't get your exhibits up or the other things that you need to do in court. Now, that took me less than 20 seconds. I had just been introduced to you, and now I've got a lawyer who may have had trouble like that in behind, or who does go to court enough, who may be more interested to understand, how do I do that? How does my company do it? But I've made clear that I understand what their pain point is.
Really good. I want to flip back to what we were kind of talking about too, is around bad connotations around salespeople in general. So, why don't people want to talk to salespeople or get confused when they're talking to IT service providers?
The reason they don't want to talk to people, right, is because of the fact that they don't want to, quote unquote, be sold, right? Back to my ice with Eskimos, right? Or the used car salesman who has a really bad rep, right? Okay? You are a professional, okay? And I've got bad news for you, okay? If you're talking to somebody, and as you alluded to, Keith, your pitch to them, your explanation about why they should work to you is because you've got the bestest techs in the whole wide world. you're going to monitor their equipment 24/7, and you're going to fix it when it breaks right away. Well, guess what? You just sounded like everybody else, and I've got other bad news for you. That means that they're going to go with the cheapest price, and somebody's always cheaper.
They sound the same. The buyer gets confused. They can't determine the difference between MSP A and MSP B. All right, and now you get into, the naughty word, where we become a commoditized industry.
Correct. So I've got some more bad news. Sorry, guys, on the raining on your parade day. All right, now I want you to lean in a little bit because we wouldn't want this secret to get out. All right? If we do nothing to those people's computers, they're going to run 95% of the time. And if our clients learn to reboot them, they might get to 97%. Okay? All right? So if you're basing all your value on 3%, you're not very valuable. Okay? The reason why you're valuable is because you understand that you should be able to communicate, and you should be providing to your client the idea that you are going to make sure they spend the right amount of money on technology. Okay? Not a dollar less and not a dollar more. All right? But you can only do that if you understand their industry.
Right, and be able to, and it's a future podcast that we'll do as part of Result Selling Framework, is to be able to articulate that differentiation.
Correct. All right?
Right.
But what I want you to get out of this podcast, folks, all right, is that just like you set up a network and you follow kind of a laundry list, right? I've been doing this for years. I know to do these things. Now I'm going to show my age because I actually remember when servers were on site, on-prem, right? Right? You got to unbox it. Plugging it in is usually a pretty good idea. If you're as old as I am, you can remember putting like 380 disks in to load Windows 95, but hopefully you're not quite that old.
Wow, you are dating yourself.
I am old. There is no doubt about it. All right? But my point of that is you knew what to do. Result Selling Framework has that same kind of checklist kind of idea, so that when you're preparing yourself to meet with somebody or you want to know who you want to talk to, you're going to be able to follow that same checklist so that you can actually show why they should work with you.
Great point. We're going to talk about inside this podcast, not, when we kind of go down the road here, seller deficit disorder. What is that, Jeremy?
So seller deficit disorder is this idea that they know about you and that you can just like show up, right? And like they'll immediately know your background and everything, right? Because we know ourselves really well, right? And we know we've helped a lot of people, and they should just know that, right? And that they should be able to tell the difference between me, who's got 30 plus years experience, right? And the guy who started, or the person who started their MSP 30 seconds ago. Right? Right?
Yep.
Right? So that's where it is. You get in and we're technicians, right? We want to fix stuff, right? So we want to talk about all our cool tools and all the great stuff we do.
Talking about themselves again, right?
Exactly. And guess what? They don't care. They really don't. Okay? I'll give you another example because I'm an example guy, right? I've got a handyman. Okay? He comes in, because let me say this, a man at my age must know his limitations. Okay? And I can assure you that my limitation is do not give me a hammer, God forbid a chainsaw. Okay? My handyman, when I call him and ask him to fix something like the toilet, he asks me whether I've attempted to fix it myself first. Because he charges me extra if I have.
Right.
All right? Because I've made it worse.
He knows you. All right, exactly.
He knows me well, right? I'm electronic. I can do computers. Don't ask me to do anything about fixing stuff. So when I call him, I ask him, I need you to fix something. And he gives me a flat fee. He says, Jeremy, to put in that new door, it's $1,200 including the door. Okay?
Huh?
He doesn't tell me how long it's going to take him. He doesn't tell me anything. He might tell me how cool the door is if I ask him. Okay? But guess what? I don't care. I just want the door put in.
Right. You want your problem fixed.
Right.
That's exactly right. Now, The handyman's going to do he's going to measure the door. What type of door do you want, right? Are we looking at some sort of screen door in front of it? He's going to ask a bunch of questions, but all you care about, I need to solve this problem. My door's flimsy. People can break in. I need to be safer. Whatever it is, that's exactly right. The buyer wants to solve their problem.
Correct. And guess what? I don't care what tools he uses to put the door in either. He doesn't tell me, oh, Jeremy, I'm getting a special hammer. And by the way, this door has hinges, and I'm going to use this screw. And, you really want to know what screwdriver I'm using and what metal piece I'm going to do. You know what? He can tell me all that. But I gave up when he said, I'm going to tell you what tool I'm going to use. All right? And I don't care. Just put the darn door in for $1,200 or whatever it is. Make it look pretty and make sure it lasts a long time.
Right. And now I'll kind of throw this out to those listening is like, from a standpoint, it's how do we get like Jeremy talking about his handyman? Like there's a trust there. He knows this guy, right? You've been working with him for a while. Most people, they pick a handyman, they stick with him. So for you as an IT service provider out there, like the buyer believes that you're not listening to them, that you don't understand their business. So when you get into that, when you get into that conversation, I have an easy acronym. I'm an acronym guy, Jeremy. You like the stories? I like the acronyms. So TECH, TECH, develop trust and rapport, right? You got to build that up. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. E is establish the need. C is connect your value to solve those problems, like what Jeremy and I were talking about with the expertise part. And then H is handle objections to get commitment and get those things out of the way. And we're going to discuss those things more in general, more in depth as we kind of get into other podcasts here. Jeremy, when you look at, I'm going to go back to your door guy and what you care about, right? Because that's really what our buyer cares about is the results, the outcomes, right? And as any entrepreneur, any business person would want to do, and anybody that's running a business, an executive of a business, it's like, how do I grow my business, both revenues and profits? How do I improve or gain efficiencies or productivity in my business? How do I mitigate risk, reduce risk? How do I get a competitive edge, right? What is the benefit of understanding those drivers of a prospect, and how do we find them out is probably the $1 million question.
Right. Well, you know what? I got a very easy answer for you. How about you stop talking and listen? Right? Right? You sit down. You make sure that they trust you. You have a few minutes, but you get that, right? You get that ability to have trust because you show them that you're an expert, right? And we talk about that in other podcasts about how you can establish that. And then you sit back and say, what's of concern of yours, right? Because they'll tell you. If you will stop long enough to listen, people will tell you what their concerns are, right? Around technology. Because I got other news. There's only 2 reasons why people buy technology these days for business. To make money and manage risk. And a good friend of mine who does cybersecurity said they're lying about the second one. Okay? Right?
Yeah.
So, right, one of our security guys told me that. He goes, yeah, they say they want to manage risk, but they don't really want to. All right? So
they just don't want the bad things to happen to their company.
Yeah, right. But so let's be honest, right? Let's be honest. Guys, that is our job to help them do that. Okay? But we have to listen to what their concerns are.
And also, I would say too, is like you said, is like ask a question that gets them talking, right? That's the key. They're going to have, if they're bringing you in because there's something wrong, like surface level. Like instead of talking about your cybersecurity problems, ask questions that they may be having a problem around, like Jeremy said, with the risk side.
And don't assume that they have the same problem, but ask them. Clients like you in your industry, we have seen these issues. Do they apply to you, or do you have other things that are causing you issues? All right. And please no buzzwords. Don't ask them what keeps them up at night. You know what keeps me up at night? When my stupid dog goes and chases something outside, okay? I don't think you can help. All right?
Yeah.
So be clear about that stuff. And then, by the way, if you're having a good conversation, we went back to the lawyers, right? If you called up a criminal lawyer, right, or any lawyer, to be honest, and they said to you, oh, great, I heard you got a referral, because a lot of us gets referrals, or at least I hope so, and we're going to teach you how to do that if you're not, right? But, right, a person says, hey, I heard you knew Ken. Ken said you did good work for him. I want to, I might want to hire you. And you go, great. I really like Ken. Ken's a great client. Do you know that I'm the cheapest place in town? Right? If you're a lawyer, you go to a lawyer and he leads with, hey, I'm the cheapest lawyer in town. Do you want to hire that lawyer more or less?
If I'm on a murder charge, I don't want that. I don't want that person. I want to get off.
If I'm doing contracts, I don't want that person, right? So if you position yourself correctly as an expert in their industry, then the person who comes behind you and starts talking about price, that's going to make them less likely to hire them instead of more.
Yeah. Now you're connecting with the buyer. That's people do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if you're asking good questions, they're going to open up to you more, especially if they're thought-provoking questions that are about them, right? Not, you definitely need to know, like, how many you need to know the basics, right? But if you start knowing more about their business and what makes them tick and what they really care about, right? Guarantee an owner of a company gets up in the morning because they're excited and energized about the business they've created. They want it to be better. So, you ask questions and you start, Jeremy, you said it perfectly. It's like, ask questions about what they care about. Have them open up about, hey, I just want a good functioning door that doesn't look like I'm a hobo in my neighborhood.
Actually, so in my case, mine was I can't have a mail. So here's a real life example, right? Why did I need a new door? Right? Doors last pretty much forever, right? Unlike my washer and dryer, they haven't planned out some shit on a door. All right, okay. But I needed a door because I have a dog, and my old door had a mail slot, and my dog does not like my mailman. So he managed to not only put teeth marks in all my mail, but he ripped a little metal plate off.
So you got a nice hole. You got some nice air conditioning for the summer. It's not so nice in the winter.
A little extra, right? Anyway, so my point of that is, if you're selling me a door, you need to ask me, like, would you like a mail slot? And my answer would be, no, I don't want a mail slot. Okay, that's what my mailbox is for. All right, but those are the type of questions that you need to ask, because a lot of people in my neighborhood have mail slots, right? Because they don't have dogs that like to eat mail, I guess. Anyway, my point is, you need to be able to facilitate those conversations and ask them the questions, because they will lead you right where you want them to go, which is explaining what their concerns are so you can see. And then I'll leave you with this. This might be one of the last things we cover today. One of the other things that I really would like MSPs to start thinking about is that most MSPs, and I've dealt with $1 million MSPs and $10 million MSPs, most MSPs can only operationally handle 2 new clients a month if they're of the proper size, right? So what I would like you to think about is you've only got 24 slots to fill, right? That's the max you can handle in a year. So if I've only got 24 slots to fill, I darn well want to make sure I fill them with the clients that I can help the most and that I can make the most money on. All right? And if you start thinking about that mentality, instead of the, quote, desperation, I need to sign this person, you will start getting better at selecting who you're going to give those 24 slots to instead of trying to just chase everything.
Man, you hit something I'm super passionate about, right? It's, look, I know we want to grow our company, but man, we're on this earth for only a short period of time. We started our business and we're only going to own it for a short period of time. Do we want to have clients that we enjoy working with that have the same sort of values that we do? Or are we just taking anybody and everybody and dealing with all the headaches and stress that goes along with that, right?
Absolutely. Listen, man. Listen. When you first start out, and I'm again showing my age, right? There was almost anything I'd do for $25 an hour. Okay, most of which I probably can't discuss on an open podcast. Okay, but when I was starting out, you'll do pretty much anything because you need the revenue, right? One of the happiest days of my professional career is when I got big enough to send the letter. And I haven't dated in a very long time because I've been married almost 33. But even I remember it's not you, it's me. So I sent out letters saying to those clients, hey, I'm really sorry we're not meeting your needs the way you are. This is your 30-day written notice that we will be transitioning you to somebody else. Let us know who to call.
Yeah, good one. Good one. I'll put, you said something that was pretty intriguing. Like if you're a technical owner out there and you're tuning into this piece, like I hope one day you get to, build a sales team, bring in some sales professionals itself. This podcast is perfect. Like we want to, let's bring in the good clients today, have a good qualifying method today. So that way, when you hire a salesperson, you got the way that you do things already kind of lined up.
Correct. And that's what RSF will do. And that's what RSF is all about, right? Another thing that MSPs fall into the trap of around selling is either they want to hire a salesperson right away because they hate it and they think they can just hire anybody. And that almost never works, right? Right. So a lot of MSPs, right, they'll hire salespeople and they'll make it about a year because that's about long as they can figure out you haven't sold anything, right? And they'll go through about 3 of them, right? Oh yeah, I know, I get it. But here's the thing, guy. My problem wasn't salespeople; it was accounting people. I went through like 6, and guess what? At the end of the 6th one, I discovered it wasn't the accounting people that were the problem. Okay, it was me, right? And so that's one thing that happens, right? The other thing that happens is that the owners get hung up on that they have to be an owner to close a deal. Okay? And what RSF is going to do for you, Result Selling Framework, is going to set this system up that works for owners but does not require an owner to operate. Okay? Right? Look, you don't want to sell, that's not your expertise. I got bad news, you're running a company. Okay? So what I recommend is you start working with us around Result Selling Framework, get a system in place, prove it works, and then you can bring somebody else in to do it because now you can say, look, this works, follow this system, and then it can continue on. Okay? But I do have one, I hate to tell you this, Keith, but I've got one more piece of bad news because I've just been so cheery on this call. So guess, guys, you didn't like selling, right? You got it working. You worked with us or worked with the RSF framework. You've been closing deals. You're like, okay, I'm ready to turn it over to a salesperson. I don't have to worry about this anymore. Guess what? You've just become a sales manager. How much information do you know about that? And what's your experience?
Right. Now I've grown to the point where I can hire one. How do I lead them?
Exactly right.
How do I hold them accountable? Right, all the fun stuff along with that. I was going to ask you to bring us home, but that's a great way to end it right there. Is like, regardless if you're a sales professional of 20 years or you're an owner just getting started on the business, right, that's responsible for growth, right? These are, just basic, it's not even sales skills. You're, again, just basic human instincts is to be curious, right? I always say, be curious, ask questions, and then create curiosity in yourself. That's going to build that rapport up and get you to the point where, hey, these folks are a good fit for our business. Do I want them as a client? Do they have problems that I solve for, right?
So I'm going to leave you with the quote from one of my favorite shows lately, right? Be curious, not judgmental, right? Okay, so that's from Ted Lasso, and it's actually not a real quote. I think they made it up, but it's a great. If you haven't seen the little 6-minute video of him playing darts, okay, that's right. And what I mean by that is, right, what I mean by be curious, not judgmental, is a lot of MSPs come in with a lot of preconceived notions about their clients. Oh, I've seen this all before. I don't really have to listen. If they would just be quiet, I'll fix all their problems. Okay, that's judgmental. Be curious. Listen to them. Find out what matters to them. Okay? And then you'll be able to deliver really good quality service and know that you guys are going to have a really good relationship over the next 10 years, which is about the average MSPs keep their clients. So you want to pick good ones.
Well said, Jeremy. So that anybody listening, if you haven't seen that Ted Lasso shooting darts, go on YouTube and do that. It is a perfect metaphor for sales and where you are and asking questions to solve problems, right? Build, be smart out there. Build these relationships with, like Jeremy said, 5-10 year relationships you have with other businesses. You're there to help them. So be curious, ask questions, get to understand them, what really is on, their surface level problems, but maybe some problems that are under the surface. And what we're going to do over the course of the next, several podcasts is to really kind of hone in on understanding the need and then, qualifying that need. Are they a fit or not? Do you want them as a client? Do you have problems that you solve for? Get to understand them, right? And create those differentiators, right? Things that you can articulate well that makes them want to do business with you. So, Jeremy, thanks a lot for being on this podcast. Certainly super enlightening. I know we're going to have you back on other ones as well. So, any final thoughts, words? I think you nailed it with the Ted Lasso bit, but any last things for the community out there?
I'll leave you this one little thing that I learned a long time ago. When you walk into to a prospect, you didn't have the deal. If you walk out afterwards and you still don't have the deal, all you've got is a little waste of time. And hope you've learned something. So don't be afraid.
Excellent point. And hopefully, results selling framework will help you understand that it's not a good opportunity in the first place, and for you to walk out of it if it's not a good fit. So we'll explore on really everything that Jeremy and I have talked about, and then some over the next several weeks. Next week we're going to be talking with James Levin, really around to discuss understanding the buyer persona. So we'll hope you join us next week for Sales Pitch Result Selling Framework Podcast.